What up, Flow Squad? In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace and upgrade your upper control arm on your Toyota Tacoma. Let's get this thing started. This video was brought to you by K-Flow's Crib, your #1 resource for Tacoma DIY projects. Make sure you smash that subscribe button so you're up to date with my latest video releases. Before I get started, I just want to let you all know that November is Men's Health Awareness Month, and to help raise awareness, I am participating in No Shave November. I usually don't grow facial hair because people say I start looking like Brad Pitt. I don't want to break too many hearts. And additionally, for the month of November, all my Google AdSense revenue will be donated to men's cancer research. Now let's get to the truck.
So the first thing we do is jack up the truck and put her on jack stands. Then we remove the front wheels. Now that we have access to the wheel well, we use a pry tool to remove the plastic clips holding the upper side of the mudguards and let that mudguard fold down. We use a 10mm socket to remove the ABS bracket on the upper control arm. We use a 10mm socket to remove the ABS bracket from the spindle. Using a set of needle nose pliers, we squeeze the plastic tab in that bracket to completely free the ABS line so we're not over tensioning it. We can now remove the cotter pin on the upper control arm ball joint using some needle nose pliers. We can use an 18mm socket to remove the sway bar end link along with an 18mm wrench. Just a quick note, guys, this is not the stock end links, so your size might vary. Now we can brush off the corrosion at the upper control arm ball joint and apply some PB blaster. Using a 19mm socket and a breaker bar, we loosen that castle nut. Undo that nut, but do not remove it. We'll need to leave a gap of about 1/4 inch, and you'll see why. Now we'll take our hammer, and then we tap on all sides of the spindle connected to that ball joint, and that spindle should break free. We can now jack up the lower control arm to bring the suspension up by a few inches. We can take our pry bar and pin that against the upper control arm so that it closes onto the lower control arm. At this point, we can remove the castle nut completely and release the upper control arm real slowly. Lower the suspension system back down and secure the spindle with some bungee cords to prevent over-tensioning the brake line. As you can see here, this ball joint is super flaccid, and no amount of Viagra or Cialis will get this floppy joint to stiffen up. Use a wire brush to brush off the corrosion on the upper control arm's long bolt threads, as well as apply some PB blaster. Use a 19mm wrench on the bolt head and pin that wrench against the wheel well. On the opposite end, we use a 19mm socket and breaker bar to undo the nut, and being careful not to lose the large washer. Use needle nose pliers to squeeze the plastic clips and push the wire bundle that's connected to it. Do the same thing for this one too. Here, we actually have to use channel locks to bend back the inner fender well because it actually interferes with the removal of that upper control arm long bolt. Be careful not to damage any of the wires behind there. We pull the AC line away from the wheel well and push the long bolt slowly through. Tap the opposite end with a pin punch very lightly while making sure the head of the long bolt is not catching anything on its way out. Once it's almost out, hold the upper control arm with one hand and pull the bolt out completely with the other. Note don't lose that large washer in between. That upper control arm should come right off. Now let's take a quick look at these upper control arm upgrades made by Freedom Off-Road. It's heavy duty to be able to bear the weight of Freedom. It's a closed tube in comparison to the OEM channel design. It's E-coated black to withstand corrosion as well as terrorism. On that ball joint, there is a cap which hides a Zerk fitting underneath. Now let's get to the installation of our new upper control arm. Push the bolt through the general area of the engine bay. Put the washer on the bolt and pull the bolt through the upper control arm end frame. Lightly tap in the bolt using a pin punch until it bottoms out. We install the washer and nut and keep it finger tight for now. The ball joint is actually really tight, so we have to finger tighten the lock nut and tap it outwards so that we can have a better installation angle onto the spindle. We clean up the spindle with a rag and also apply a little bit of wheel bearing grease at that mating surface. Now let's jack up the lower control arm a few inches. We can mount the ball joint onto the spindle and install the washer and nut with a 22mm socket. We can then torque down that ball joint to 81 foot-pounds. We can now put a 19mm wrench on the bolt head of that long bolt and pin that against the frame and tighten down the nut with a 19mm socket and torque it down to 85 foot-pounds. We can reinstall the sway bar end link with an 18mm socket and tighten that down to 41 foot-pounds. We can also install the 10mm nut that holds the ABS line bracket against the upper control arm. We can now reinstall the 10mm bolt on the ABS line bracket at the spindle, as well as the plastic wire clip. We can install the wire clips against the wheel well and also push back the AC line that we pulled earlier. Since my current mudguards were dry rotted, I ended up replacing them completely. A link to find these aftermarket replacements will be in the description below.
So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. As you can see, this upgrade is pretty easy and pretty straightforward, and this is definitely something you can do in only a few hours. Just a few side notes, guys. On the driver's side, when you do make that replacement and that upgrade, there is a bracket right underneath the battery that you'll have to remove so that that long bolt comes out much easier. And lastly, all the tools, parts, and materials used in this video will be on my Amazon page. So check out that page. Go to amazon.kflow-crib.com. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for me, because that does help my channel out. And again, all the proceeds from my Google AdSense revenue during the month of November will be donated towards cancer research. So help me out and share this video. So that's pretty much it for today, guys. Until next time, peace out.